Cool. So, welcome to the very first ever AFA podcast of Stack the Box. So normally I know that every podcast starts out with a 5-minute introduction, and that always includes thanking our sponsors. So I just want to thank. Yep, and we'll go from there. So just for those of y'all that don't know, my name is Rob Gambolati. I've been in around gridiron in New Zealand since 1999. Took a bit of a break and then came back in 2002 and spent most of my time with Tamaki Lightning based in the east of Auckland. I'll let Ben, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the fans out there?
Yeah, man. Ben Freeman here. Been around football in Hamilton specifically for, what are we now, 14 years, '06, straight out of school. And, the Hawks won a Kiwi Bowl, coached junior team to a Unity Bowl championship this past season as well. So love the sport, and refed and coached and watched and played, and loving it. Looking forward to this new Stack the Box podcast.
Cool. And third and star of the show. Tell us about yourself, Sam.
Very kind, Gambo. My name's Sam Pilisi. Grown up around Metro Lions, which is one of the older clubs here in New Zealand. Rite of passage, so to speak, water boyed for a number of years, but started playing with a bit of kit on since '99. Played through our various teams in the club at Metro Lions, but have stopped playing perhaps for about 2-3 years now. And sort of just hung around the club and the wider league in terms of supporting the game. So that's why I'm here.
When you say one of the older clubs, you mean the oldest, though, right?
I was just trying to sort of share the platform with
everyone
nice. Wanted to sort of be in the older clubs, but I think we perhaps have some bragging rights as the oldest club in New Zealand, and very fortunate and blessed last year to celebrate 40 years. So in the coming season will be our 41st.
Sweet. And we'll definitely be hitting on some of that history as we come through the season, no doubt. Cool. But the main purpose of tonight is to have a look at new AFA President Shiraz Soisa's proposal for what gridiron's going to look like in the 2020 season. Not like most things that are going on in the world, this is not the result of COVID. I'm sure that's playing some part in it, but that's not the main reason for it. So Shiraz put together a 20-minute proposal that he shared on YouTube previously, and some of you may have seen it through various meetings out there. If you haven't watched it, check it out so you get a good idea of what some of his proposals are, what some of the ideas are. Still yet to be finalized, but we thought we'd just have a bit of a corridor tonight and just look at some of it. So, I'm kind of thinking the first thing is he kind of touches on these four windows that kind of the season's going to look like. And one of the first things that he talks about is the big man development program. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Definitely been it's been a big facet of New Zealand football over the years, isn't it? Our name alludes to that, of the podcast being, Stack the Box. It's always been a common denominator throughout the years is the power running, whether or not the simplicity, but also there's something beautiful about just lining up and being able to go, hello, here we are, with some good strong linemen throughout through all the clubs on both sides of the ball, and having these big band developments definitely give an opportunity for these big kids coming through as well to upskill the game. The game is won and lost in the trenches, isn't it? So definitely a good opportunity for these guys to upskill, and I like it for sure.
Have you guys both spent time on the O-line? I'm sure you must have. So, we've all played O-line at some stage, right?
I regret that I didn't spend more time at centre from the get-go. That's easily my favourite position, 100%, man. Yeah. I love roaming at the back there at free safety, but centre was Yeah, center's a different beast, man. Right in the middle there. You know, it's good.
You would have been one of the smaller centers in the comp, surely.
Easily. Got suplexed multiple times by lightning D-lines, and
no way. We don't grab people around the helmet. Come on, man. But yeah, and sorry, Sammy, before you jump in, I mean, like you said, the game is often won and lost in the trenches. Absolutely, it's a hugely important part, but it's not like, and what you got to love the game to really be excited about playing on the O-line. Mm-hmm. What do you think, Sam?
Yeah, I'm hugely supportive of an initiative to further refine and develop the engine room, which is the O-line and the D-line. No one's going anywhere unless the engine room is firing on as many cylinders as possible. I've been very grateful, perhaps in the last 12 months or a little bit longer, to be working alongside NSC, the Noah brothers, who are formerly of Metro Lions, and sort of pop in here and there now and then to support the club. But their links to the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame and iterations of sort of lineman camps, sort of this big man concept through Jesse Sapolo and others, speaks for itself in terms of the importance of putting value in terms of the big men. It's as contrary to perhaps what people might think from the outside, or even some of those within our community who think the engine room is all bash, it's all brute. There's lots to think of. There's lots of technique. There's lots of thought that goes into analyzing game, even down to the milliseconds. And I think anything that we can do, be it as a league or as clubs or separate entities such as NSC, to focus, put some time aside to focus on player development in terms of linemen, I think is a great initiative. I think it's just about providing time and space and making sure it's well promoted, both for those within our community that are already existing players, but also new players, because I think what we can also acknowledge that if we look outside of our sport, rugby and league, and even perhaps basketball and stuff like that, the aerobic nature to that means that some of our bigger young men are starting to get phased out of being active participants in rugby and league, with lots of running. And for those that still want to be involved in sports, we all know there's a place for them. And I think if trenchmen or big men camps can be an incubator, a time and place for where they'd be valued for their size and their weight and all of that, as opposed to perhaps seeing it as a deficiency in some of the other sports, then I think I think it's a good avenue to go down. Sorry, that's a bit long-winded, but I'm fully in support of that, and just making sure the right people are involved to encourage our young men to be involved in the sport. And like I said earlier, it's the engine room of getting us anywhere, both on offense and defense.
And you mentioned NSC earlier, man. Talk the newer boys. That is some serious lineman stock right there, man. Like, just successful offensively and defensively. Like, yeah, people getting to learn from those guys, man. You can't go wrong. I guess one of my biggest concerns is, like, we're taking these kids from who've played rugby and league, probably, right? And even if I'm playing prop in rugby or league, there's a potential that I could score a try. You know what I mean? If I'm playing left guard, I'm never scoring a touchdown. I am the reason why my running back's scoring a touchdown, and I am the reason my quarterback's getting a pass off. But it takes a little bit of experience to kind of get to that love of the position. And I mean, as weird as this sounds, I played offensive line in my entire football career until I came to New Zealand, when I met a whole bunch of Polynesians who were 3 times my size and went, I'm never playing offensive line again. But growing up, I was the short, fat kid in my middle school and high school. I played left guard my entire career. And fortunately, we had a very mobile offense. I pulled, and I was sandwich blocking outside linebackers who didn't see me coming 3 out of 4 plays. How they didn't learn after the third time, I don't know, but it kept working. But very much that technique over, I didn't have the brute strength. And so I absolutely love coaching O-linemen because that's my foundation. I love that position, but I find it difficult to get kids excited about it when they're first new to the sport. And you still see people who go through our grades who play O-line and then all of a sudden wind up at quarterback as they become veterans because they just make other people play in the O-line. And so we get that exemplar in some of our senior grades. And I'm like, how do we without jumping into that flag mini season that's designed for the specialist players? Like I mentioned it to y'all earlier. For me, it's like, man, the specialists, those kind of those skills players, they get to play flag. That's recess, man. They're out there playing, having fun. The big man competition, I hope it's fun, or else it's going to be like, okay, all you big boys, you just go over there. That's like detention. Do your work, and when the season starts, you can come and play with us and have fun again. There has to be a massive element of fun to make these kids want to come out week in and week out.
I definitely think the format of those camps is going to have to be definitely a bit of thought put into them, and like you're saying, foster the attitude of the reason, not why you're an offensive lineman, but the importance of the position to a goal for a team, and the importance of it. It's the least natural skill for New Zealanders to come along and play American football. It's not catching and running and stepping someone or hitting someone or tackling someone. It's literally you blocking them, and you're not, no, you can't hold them. Just push them around, man, and protect them. And no, you're not going to get the ball. So yeah, the format of these camps is going to be take a bit of thought, for sure. And I'm sure there's lots of willing people out there, but it's another workshop session for some others at another time, for sure. But yeah, looking forward to the idea anyway. Yep.
Yeah, I've been to a few run by Jesse Sapolo when he's come down. And I've just been, again, going back to being a water boy, and leave the experts to do what they know best. But I think whilst it's a selfless position across the O-line to block and let other people take the glory, I also think there are some things about young men in terms of competitiveness and bravado, one-on-ones, and all of that sort of stuff. It never goes wrong. No one wants to be showing up. And good old competition. And even when you do get shown up, but good guided teaching and upskilling always goes a long way. And I think adding to buy-in, I guess, is that if our young linemen, or even linemen across all ages, believe or feel that there's going to be value add in these big men camps, then they'll turn up. They'll get things broken down. And I'm just speaking perhaps as a generalization. Most of our clubs only have one or two coaches, perhaps three. We don't have specialized coaches all the way through. And perhaps some of the O-line stuff might get squished over a bit. And I think if some of our O-line turn up to some of these camps, that's all O-line and D-line, sorry. It's all on them. It's a specialized time to focus on them. There's no random stuff to juggle in between fitness or routes or other things, and it's specialized attention on them to break things down. Apologies, play by play, hands, footwork. Don't lean. Sort of move your feet and I think from if I was as much younger and if I was a lineman, I'd feel something for us, so to speak. The big men would be like, oh, finally, it's something for us. We can all, hang out and do stuff and, get down in the trenches.
Yep.
Absolutely. Cool. And so while that's going on, of course, as I mentioned earlier, the skills players are going to be participating in a flag mini season. So those things are going to be running at the same time. So we got the big men running their comp and the flag mini season for those skilled players. What happens if a big man who decides if a big man is going to the big man comp or gets to play in the flag season? I mean,
Well,
We got a few quarterbacks out there that are 140 plus. Are they going to the big man comp now, or are they playing flag?
that's the thing, and I guess we're different with the, or we'll get to it, maybe it has been spoken with the 8-man thing, the 8-man competition being rolled out. Is your tight end, are you going to send him to a big man camp, or is he going to be out there running routes? I mean, I still want my pseudo left and right tackles to be bloody, to be able to block for sure. But yeah, who was it to decide whether or not the timing of all it is going to be, offset a wee bit, or there is going to be opportunity for people to go to both. Maybe they're going to have a flag tournament. You've got a team plays 4 games on a Saturday. And then again the next Saturday, if they want to, if they want to enter again, or can then a player that's played one Saturday go off and do a big man comp. I guess there's some details to be fleshed out there as well in there. But yeah, the flag thing, like you're saying, there's some big QBs around, and also a couple of props that fancy themselves their hands and things as well. Sure.
And how do you guys feel about flag as an introduction to the sport? What do you reckon, Sammy?
Yeah, I think flag is as inclusive as can be it weight, age, gender, and I think it's an easy opening into the sport. Some of us that fancy ourselves as flying in committed with helmets and pads, that can be exhilarating, but for others that can be a little bit challenging, especially right off the bat. And I think creating access points for people to engage with the sport is always promising. And I think if the league is going to move towards creating more access points, then personally I'm all up for it. And I guess from that point of view, flag has less startup costs, obviously in terms of gear and all that sort of stuff. And I think, and like I said earlier, it's just more inclusive. But I think in terms of those that are established players, whilst I've talked about the engine room, the crux of the thing is if we're going to score points, that's going to be the exchange between the quarterback and key skilled players. And so if they're going through multiple reps together, away from all the big linemen trying to disrupt it all, then I think that's it's all going to bode well for improving or the attempt in improving that connection.
I think if we talk about the windows, obviously these big man camps and the flag football mini tournaments going on. The initial issue, the timing was, it's just for when the season does roll around. It's kind of the playbook install, really. That came up a little bit. How the AFA activities cross over with the club stuff is probably timing-wise that the plan themselves, the big man camps, the flag, great. I guess the timing of it was all probably up in there, but we say there is still time to flesh it all out. I think is the AFA running they're having their SGM to confirm or discuss this plan more, is it? Quite soon, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. This whole proposal is going to the SGM in soon.
Yep.
In which case it'll either be voted for or against. I guess if it's voted against, I guess we just do what we did last year. If it's voted for, then we see the rollout of these things.
Yep.
So yeah, none of it's set in stone at this stage, as far as I know. That's to come, I guess. But yeah, and it'll be fascinating to see what people's thoughts are on it.
I didn't see timeframes attached to the rollout of these initiatives, but perhaps assuming that it's a chips all in and we're piloting these all at the same time. But perhaps I'd be interested to see whether or not there was going to a possibility of clubs we're going to exercise some feedback for some of this to be staggered. Somewhat the introduction of new initiatives a season after the other, and sort of take learnings from a pilot of them all, and I guess a little discussion on which one would we trial first. There's a personally speaking, I think there's a need for upheaval, so to speak, of the calendar year and how we play the sport in its various forms. But obviously, it is the risk of changing it all at the same time is a high risk to get it all right, so to speak, or to learn from it all when we're piloting lots of things one after the other, or even for some things, perhaps like big men and the flag simultaneously.
Yep. Yeah, pretty daunting for clubs that, that have been being run the same way over the years. I mean, yeah, maybe this year they do just, we run one Saturday about 3 weeks before the season for a flag tournament or something, and just see how it all runs, right? And then next year, who knows, the 21-22 season, getting a couple more of the other, a staged approach, like you've said, Sam, is probably, that a bit nicer way and easier for the palate for everyone to digest, for sure.
If it happens all at once, it's perhaps a little bit of a life mantra of Gambo, just run it straight.
That's right. Here I come.
Around the corner.
If it takes on the life mantra of Gambo, it's going to run it straight and get bumped straight off. It's all going to fail. But looking at that, so if you see the proposal, he's got a timeline on there with the calendar year on it. And one of the other things that I wanted to bring up, and it's kind of skipping ahead a little bit, maybe we'll come back to the 8-man comp, but you bring up a good point, Sammy. So the initial, all of it's supposed to start in August. Mm-hmm. All right. So we're sitting on the 22nd of July right now. It's unlikely in 10 days time we're going to be rolling this out, in my opinion, or it's crazy to think we're going to be rolling all of it out in 10 days time. But even that, so August in the calendar that Shiraz posted on his proposal, there's football running from August to May. Mm-hmm. Right? That's June and July only. That's 10 months of football. Mm-hmm. Too much or no?
The old format, coming back after the new year, the old way when it was kind of maybe, for the senior calendar, you might have 1 or 2 games of regular season left and then playoffs as well. It was a big ask. I mean, you've got 3 weeks off, and I'll speak for myself, I'd just go off, was partying me at the beach and drinking a bit, and you've got to go to some music festivals, and you got a hangover until about the 4th of January, and then, oh crap, I got training tomorrow. What? And then a game against the Wildcats on the 10th. Was never a fun thing, but I think, and I had said this to Shiraz a couple of weeks ago, if the agenda's set out, nice, and there is a plan, and it doesn't seem so, for lack of a better word, just kind of piggity and chucked together kind of thing. I think there will be a much more of a desire for people to see, okay, well, this is legit, this is going. Yes, 10 months sounds huge, but it's not everyone. One player doesn't play from August through to May kind of thing. They can, just saying as proposal video, players can pick and choose their, their participation, their level of participation. Do they just want to play, some flag and then an 8-man tournament? Sweet. But do you want to get some film together and head off to college? As a 18-year-old, you can do that too. It kind of puts a bit of onus on the player and a responsibility, but the opportunity for players to be as involved as they want to be, isn't it? Really?
What do you think, Sam?
I agree with lots of points that Freeman's brought up in regards to 10 months is a long time, but I think if packaged well, there are perhaps different seasons within a long season. In terms of different players opting in, or even different types of players, contact versus non-contact, a bit more free-flowing versus the full version of the game. There will be some that will want to participate right across all formats. I guess one of my challenges that I see from that is that potentially the clubs in the background behind this will be the same people driving or keeping the frameworks alive for the clubs. Perhaps I'm speaking sort of out of turn and trying to assume that many of our clubs, even in the current window, are a bit stretched and have a little bit of a reprieve and a rest during winter to recuperate and then try, sort of do things behind the scenes. If we extend that, they're going to stretch themselves even more. But obviously that does still provide an opportunity for more people, more volunteers to come and fill the gaps. But I guess having been around the sport for about 20 years at the moment, that sometimes doesn't always happen. It ends up being the same.
Just sometimes, though.
So,
yeah, and that's a great point. Like something I hadn't even thought about. Like behind the scenes, that's 2 months off, and that 2 months off isn't even going to be 2 months off, because if things wrap up in May, if they are involved with, like, say, Down Under Bowl or whatever else is happening at the end of that calendar, June and July, you're then starting to think about, okay, who do I need to get for my big man comps and my flag teams, and all of a sudden you're straight into it. So that's almost 12 months of work for those people behind the scenes. So yeah, that'll be fascinating to see how that goes.
It's definitely.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Freeman?
It's definitely a desire. I think you could see in Shiraz's proposal video that one of the goals and the purpose of the proposal was to increase community engagement and visibility of the sport. He touched on, NZAF and Sky Sport stuff, which obviously if there's an end goal of that level, 12 months is a big ask, but, kind of 10 months is, kind of doable, or it does seem like it's for something. There is a purpose, and, we're not just going through the motions of another AFA season. If they really get these player pathways going, and look, each year, the AFA, if not NZF, is sending off, 5, 6, 7 kids to colleges and stuff. I mean, that would be a huge success, and definitely something that a community and the football community in the country and in the region, obviously the AFA, should be able to buy into a bit more and kind of get it back into being something really great, which I hear it used to be, kind of thing. And can be again, no doubt.
So that's a great transition. So if the AFA is sending all 5, 6, 7 kids overseas to play gridiron, do we have to hope that they get into an 8-man competition in the U.S. because there's a tough transition? So Shiraz is proposing this 8-man comp. There's been plenty of historic conversation around 8-man. How do people transition from 8-man to 11-man? Blah blah blah. What are y'all's thoughts on the idea of running this 8-man comp as a introduction to the contact game?
You have a go, Sammy.
I guess I'm a bit of a purist, but I think, I think if we put the game here in a New Zealand sense, irrespective of further opportunities, then I think if we are able to give 8-man, 9-man, 11-man opportunities to young people, then I think if we can teach that in a sound and a safe way, in an enjoyable way, to our players, I think that's what I guess the purpose of the local league. In terms of the next level, I think we are always going to fall short in terms of providing a well-rounded experience, be it 8, 9, or 11. And even if we were going to run a very competitive local 11-man comp for our junior and Colts grades, it's still going to fall short of what the next level is. And I think for me, as if we can just teach the sound skills irrespective of the format, the big gains in terms of learning and knowledge and football now is always going to be offshore. And I think if we just let the experts do what the experts do, then for me personally, I'm not too fussed, so to speak, of the 8, 9, 11 format, rather than just, I guess, emphasizing some sound fundamentals. And the key thing here in regards, if we are going to look at some pathways, is to have sound relationships as a league and as clubs, know our stuff, and do the stuff early, because I've been around for about 20 years, and anecdotally, I find that we see young players come through, we start having conversations, maybe we start doing paperwork, or we start talking about things, and then we start leaving it towards the end part of the window for young people to go across. And so I think if we can be a bit more proactive as a league or clubs, or just as established players, get that foundational work done as early as possible, get them game time here, And send them across, because the biggest gains are going to be offshore. As much as we fancy myself as an expert on Madden and anything else, there's going to be 100 more people that are going to surpass my knowledge and impart the skills and knowledge for any aspiring young players. And that needs to be done by them being offshore and us equipping them and sending them off in a decent time frame.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you touched on there, Sammy, about just, the next level is obviously, well, it is, we'll fall short of that next level. And so when they do go over there, they will learn huge amounts. But we just need to give them an opportunity to get their athleticism and their raw talents, which we know we have huge amounts of in this country. Always punching above our weight and, in so many sports and things. Just get a chance to get that on film, really. And like saying, in there early, these guys can play in the junior competition from age 14. Get guys over there for their junior season, junior and senior years of high school, and just get some stuff on film and go at it for sure. I mean, if you can play football, you can, you'll get found. You can, the 8-man comp will have skinnier fields. You're not going to be, it'll look proportionate, I guess, on there, and straight away if a guy's got the ball in his hand and he's doing special things with it, it's all, all Kiwi players, well, all can tackle pretty well. You still get an opportunity to show your block destruct, your blocking, your ability to throw the ball, make people miss, catch the ball and track it and all that sort of thing. So all the requisite skills are there, and you have the opportunity to display those in the 8-man game. But like saying, for the purists, we've got a couple here in the Hamilton club that initially kind of dug their heels in, but there'll be, there's going to be growing pains for sure. But I think it's it's fine. I mean, we ran the junior comp last year as a 9-man comp and managed to. I loved the challenge of coming up with a playbook that kind of worked. That was really multifaceted and fluid. Was able to do adjustments through the years with it. So it was quite cool. So this 8-man one, and I got stacks of napkins with the new plays and schemes on it and things like that. But I'm sure it'll work out in the end. There's still people to hit. There's still touchdowns to be scored. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think the 8-man comp, I think it's a fantastic idea in terms of the number of defaults we've seen in the past. Hopefully it'll definitely eliminate those. 3-man line. Yeah, and I reckon like that player that comes in just to kind of smash the person in front of them, if they do that in 8-man, that's a much bigger gap they're leaving for their teammates on either side. In 11-man, you might be able to do that, and people can still fill the gap you're leaving. So players may not notice it as much. But in the 8-man, if you're that person that's just headhunting and kind of going after people, your teammates might start picking up on that, going, "Okay, that's cool. You knocked that dude down, but the running back went straight past you, and we were so far away that we couldn't get to it." Mm-hmm. And so it'll be fascinating to see how that plays out. And then the fourth window, of course, is going from this 8-man comp into the elite 11-man comp. And Sherez explains the difference. And the 8-man comp is a participatory one that everybody can come in and be a part of, and hopefully clubs will have multiple teams. And then finishing off, he suggests this kind of 4-team is his initial thought, 11-man elite comp. Knowing the history of our sport, where do these 4 teams come from? Where do they set up? Who selects people into these elite 11-man? Are we going to have trials? What are y'all's thoughts on this elite 11-man comp? What do you think?
I guess the worries around, like you're saying, and which players go to which teams. Like you're saying, there's, he mentioned loaning players from, up and coming clubs, but they might not have enough players to put an 11-man team in. So a player can be loaned to an established club with kind of the admin around that in terms of making sure that player returns to his club to increase that club's skill base and is going to definitely provide challenges and how definitely around that. I think that is probably the whether or not, do you just have the top 4 teams from the 8-man club get through and then the others don't? So it's almost kind of just a playoffs then, but then you just got, I guess, disengaged player base again.
Yeah, that wouldn't really make it the elite comp then, would it? Because surely there's elite players in those other teams.
There are as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
What do you think, Sammy?
Yeah, I've got lots of questions. I think being around the sport for a little while now, there seems to be perhaps some organic flows of highs and lows that most clubs take on through a life cycle of having some peak moments and then perhaps some rebuilding seasons. But perhaps for some clubs, rebuilding seasons aren't necessarily as severe as perhaps emerging or clubs that have perhaps had to rebuild perhaps en masse. My challenge, so to speak, because already at the moment there are, if we want to categorize some clubs that are haves and have-nots based on output, which is successful wins on the board and I guess having successful seasons. I'm just not totally sure or convinced in the detail of what's presented thus far if separating the two comps will then have perhaps in two separate comps there will be an even playing field of obviously everyone playing against each other, and then the elite, at least the elite can be a bit more competitive of each other. Then it won't be blowout games or defaults. But what I'm concerned about is marrying the two, and how can a team that's sort of in the 8-man, an emerging club, how do they get into the next level? Otherwise, it just further perpetuates the haves and the have-nots, and the gap widens. So I'm just not, and I don't have solutions, but I just perhaps see that as something that could further widen the divide between some of the established or clubs that have strong junior and coach programs, and then sort of bigger senior teams, and those that get then stuck as sort of smaller teams that either default and then are just stuck relegated to loaning their players out for an elite competition, and then just have their players come back or not, because the choice will always be on a player, and you go away for a little season to play 11-man. There will be a loyal few that will go back to play 8-man for their traditional club, and there'll be some that will stay. And so I guess that's just my my feedback on some of the finer points that perhaps need to be
and even then, I mean, because like you said, we've seen players go on loan in the past and not return, because it's a tough thing to do. You create relationships and you find good things in that club, and so why would you go back to a place where there's defaults and things like that? But then the other issue is if your club doesn't get into the elite 11-man comp and you're having to travel for trainings. It's a volunteer sport. I mean, how far am I traveling? All of us are working full time. How far am I traveling? If I don't make trainings, am I not playing in the games? And then all of a sudden we've got all kinds of other issues around the sport. I mean, it's an elite competition. We want people involved and engaged. I'd love to have this athlete from that other team. They're not coming to training. Do I still play them? So now, and then all of a sudden we're kind of in this, okay, how do we define this elite competition? I guess, how is it going to look? And so I think what we're hearing is that, some cool ideas. Shiraz put together a great proposal, really flashy looking, but a lot of questions still. And I'm sure we're not the only ones with them. So I guess we'll see. We'll find out at the SGM maybe. Hopefully some people will have a look at this before the SGM and take them to that meeting, and we'll see what kind of questions Shiraz has to post up during that meeting, and maybe get some of those answers from them. But I guess, man, we're certainly not at any shortage of things to talk about, really, looking at this new proposal, are we?
No, for sure, man. Yeah, I think we should definitely schedule a couple of these more about, as more of the details come out, because no doubt it's going to be a pretty fluid situation. Touched on whether or not the season is going to have a staged rollout. Well, each time we get some new news. Definitely, there's going to be stuff to talk about for sure for the next several months. I mean,
Anything you want to say to wrap up, Sammy?
No, I think change is always difficult, so to speak, in various ways. But I think speaking for myself and just reading some of the comments post the dissemination of this proposal is lots of people have been keen for change, and I don't know Shiraz personally too well, but I think it's bold and daring nonetheless to put yourself out there and propose changes, and see how that goes in terms of the buy-in and the implementation. But from my end, change is urgently needed. How that looks like, obviously there's lots to work through, but I'm hopeful that as a community we buy into things, and some things will happen overnight, and some things will be an ongoing process of further refining changes, because most people I've spoken to aren't totally keen to stay in the current state. So you can't complain on both ends, so to speak. Complain in the current state and then complain that there are changes proposed. But nonetheless, just have to try and embrace things. So thanks, Gambo and Freeman, for having me.
Sure, Sammy. Yeah, very eloquently put, mate.
Sweet. All right. So, yeah, I guess that's our first episode of Stack the Box. Thanks, boys. And hopefully this is something that that we get more than at least we hit the double digits in the downloads, and we can carry on doing.
Nice. Very good shot, fellas.
Shot, boys.
So I'll just throw out a quick sweet thanks very much, and look forward to many more conversations like this, hopefully in the build-up and throughout the rest of the year, and keeping people posted on what's happening on the AFA.
Nice. Oh, very good.